Okay, so I've heard things like, well, they might say, why would I meditate for 40 minutes or an hour? I can just think about something. So I think about it in here in my frontal cortex, my prefrontal cortex, and it makes complete sense. But we got to think of ourselves when we're working magic or law of attraction or hypnosis or anything along those categories, or just living life. Um, like Alistair Crowley had said that why study rituals and magic? Well, because we're doing it all the time, so we might as well be good at it. So, getting back to more of the point, we can think about something on a conscious level, and that works for us on a very thin, kind of paper thin way, but really, we as human beings, um, with the evolutionary traits of our bodies and brains, we're on this cognitive, conscious, aware level, like like an accountant or something, like an analyst, and underneath that we've got a gorilla. In our brains, we've got those layers of gorilla and cat and reptile and lizard and the very first life forms of amoeba, and that's what our brains evolved from. So, how substantial is that if you're going to say to yourself, I'm successful once, and you think it, and your gorilla is inside your brain and your body, and it's just, it doesn't speak that language. I'm not speaking your language. So, with rituals and magic, yeah, it's going to take a great deal of, concentration and focus. You're going to have to invest yourself. Um, and it may seem a little foolish if you don't take into account that um, you have much more powerful layers of who you are than the conscious day-to-day level that you're aware of. Um, I mean, just for an example from studies and experiments, there was an experiment where people were in a room and they were offered crackers and they may have made some crumbs eating the crackers, which wasn't the point of the experiment, but in some scenarios they were just in a room eating crackers, and they made some crumbs and they left, and that was it. And in the experiment where they wanted to see what would happen, they had this scent of lemon cleaner, coming from another room, like someone had just cleaned the room in another room. Our sense of smell is our oldest sense. Our brain registers smell immediately before everything else. And these people in a room, and they smell the scent of like lemon, what's the lemon cleaner? I don't know, some lemon floor cleaner. And those people, before they left the room with their crackers, or maybe it was cookies, I'm not sure, and they cleaned up their crumbs. So, like, we've got to communicate with these parts of ourselves that are these major aspects of ourselves that are we're not aware of and we don't interact with, and these people didn't know that, oh my gosh, I smell lemon cleaner, that's a signal I've got to clean up after myself. They're not aware of that. And if they are, they might make a story of it like, it reminds me of my grandmother's house. Oh yeah, and my grandmother, she always made me hot chocolate after she had me clean up some stuff. She's trying to teach me lessons when I was a kid. Oh yeah, that reminds me I should clean up my crumbs. So why would you spend an hour meditating or days saying affirmations? Because you're not exactly who you think you are. You are a like an accountant. That's who you think you are. You're this accountant keeping track of bills and stuff. But the more powerful aspect of who you are is you're this like a one of those 80s rock stars who's immature and on drugs and just irrational and crazy and tearing apart hotel rooms, and you're this accountant and you've got to cover all the damages, and you know you had better like learn to communicate with that gorilla part of you, reptile part of you. um and with magic it's like well, I've got these deep layers of powerful aspects, but why aren't gorillas working rituals and magic? Because they might be a little bit, but they can't because they don't have that little piece of self-examination and doubt and questioning reality. So we're in the matrix, and all of a sudden we took the red pill, and we're like, I don't get it. Like what is going on? And the part of ourselves that is a chimpanzee, a gorilla, the part of ourselves that's just a mammal can't can't realize that there's a matrix, but they might be able to work a little bit. Like a wolf might be hunting and they might kind of say a prayer and they catch what they're looking for more easily. I'm sure that probably happens, but they don't have the ability to realize like we can through here. You know, there is no deer. There is a deer right here. Okay, I agree. There's a deer right here, and I'm gonna go catch it and kill it, and then I'll have my supper. So I don't know. I say things and I don't know if they translate well into the I don't know. But I'll just give you some examples I'm working on today and some ideas of how to communicate with the part of yourself that doesn't register, how to speak the language, of the more powerful aspects of yourself. So, here I have um some spirits that I work with, and I want to let it sink in. So in the old grimoires, am I saying that right? They have the listing of the spirit, the attributes, the powers and stuff, the sigils. And maybe that was really, really powerful for people, who lived under the superstitions of the Catholic Church, and there's ghosts in my closet and all that kind of stuff. But we're in a modern secular age, and socially, our brains don't process that. We're fortunate to live in a Western culture with all these advances, but when it comes to something primal like magic or something like that, we don't. We're grown-ups. We don't think about stuff like that. We're not living in isolated in Africa where we've got fetish dolls under our bed and stuff. We don't believe in that. Okay, and that's very, very much affects us. Even if we think it doesn't, our culture affects us. One of the things I had to do was just try to connect with whatever culture's out there with, all these irrational, or I like the word transrational beliefs. Um, because there's studies like people going into a classroom, 9 minutes, okay. People going into a classroom for research studies, and the experiment is that they'll have three lines, and one is the longest line, and there's no question about that. But the other people in the experiment, it's the Ash experiment, you can look it up. It's very descriptive because the other people in the experiment, in the classroom, and the teacher said that, okay, this line is the longest line. And it didn't take long for the person to just agree, okay, this line is the longest line because that's what everyone says. And it's not. Um, but we've got to deal with that as magical people in a secular Christian world, and don't think for a second that Christianity, the religion that dominates our culture, and the secular system of government and justice. Don't doubt for a second that those two don't interweave and affect each other. You can go into any kind of secular setting where it's a courthouse or any kind of government setting. You're gonna hear messages that are Christian messages, like just don't just drop it, just forgive that person, and you think back to your upbringing, and you're like, well, that's the right thing to do. I should just forgive this person. And I mean, that's just one example, but we're gonna get Christian messages all the time in a secular world. It's a weird mix of cultures in our country, USA. But anyway, some more examples of how maybe to communicate with your unconscious, deeper aspects of yourself that don't know exactly how to work the magic or why, or maybe they do, but they're waiting for you to tell them what the goal is. Um, I mean, like, I don't know, like, well, I'll just share this one. Um, I've had to deal with the mental health system and the secular world. I go into family court, and you would think that's secular, but it's not. And the judge tells me, like, you can you can talk to your son about religion, of course, but it has to be about God. It can't be about gods and goddesses. I'm like, well, I didn't really say this, but like, I can't talk to my son about Ganesha or Aphrodite or, Ochun or any, it has to be about God. Okay, sure. But, some of the stuff I get is like, well, you can, ritual magic, that doesn't exist. But, you can talk to your son about God. I had to deal with so much, so like, I'll just make this. Rituals are stupid. And you can go the whole hypnosis route, and that's one thing. But this is just something to do on maybe a repeated basis, where you're going to actually transform your thoughts and beliefs. I mean, maybe this belief has been interjected into you. Some people go so far as to use words like mind rape. Um, that's a strange thing to say, but there might be some truth to that. But you're gonna say like something you don't want to believe. So this can be anything. I put rituals as stupid. I decrease one letter, like the abracadabra formula, where you just take one letter off until the word gets smaller. And you're gonna actually reverse your thinking. So you get rituals are stupid, rituals are stupid, rituals are stupid. You go all the way down, and finally you're left with RI. You're left with the letter R. And then when you're doing this, you're just gonna relax, have some music on, not go over the top with trying to force or overthink or anything to happen. You're interfacing. Think of like two operating systems. Your conscious mind has one operating system, but right now you're interfacing with an older operating system, like DOS or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So you get to the point R, and that's the turning point. You're going to stay in the moment, like they say, in the moment where the magic is. You're going to be relaxed. Then you're going to build up what you want to think. So you're reversing a belief, you're reversing a thought, and you're just like with me, I'm like, rituals is powerful. And I build that up. So I totally reversed the energy flow, I totally reversed the belief. I put so mote it be as the end. Okay, I'll wrap this up soon. I'm at 14 minutes. Okay. So, for a little grounding, we can actually change our hormones, our bodies and stuff. And being transgender, I don't want to take hormonal and all that kind of stuff from medical professionals and stuff. So, I've been working on this, as a project to work on to feminize myself and other things. So, I've got some results. I can't can't exactly do the pen test, but, you know. So what have I been doing? I mean, first I had to clear with my mind, because this part up here that's, rational and everything wants to know, like, can this actually work? But yeah, there have been studies on using hypnosis for augmenting, adjusting hormonal rates in menopause women and such as that. So I'm like, okay, this is a go. This has worked. It's been researched. There's proof. Okay, so I don't have to use hypnosis. I mean, I do sometimes, but just to communicate with those other parts of ourselves, because, like, we don't have to use ritual magic. Hypnosis, that's one thing, and there's other elements to it, but we can actually talk to the inner witch, and the inner witch is going to be, our deeper selves, because that's where all the power is. So how do I talk to my inner witch? So I have just a piece of paper, my name, middle initial, last name, birth date. I don't want to get that in there. Okay. So I'm just going to relax and testosterone, take a letter off on each one till I finally get down to T. And I'm going to cap it off with that makes me happy. And I am telling myself that doesn't care about science that, okay, we're going to decrease our testosterone levels. So to build up, I'm going to estrogen. I'm going to increase my estrogen levels, which, like I said, I've got some proof. I mean, it's a work in progress. In some 16 minutes, some other ideas, to work on, or maybe, like Frederick Xavier's channel, Mind and Magic, is said to have a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and write, like, all the negative stuff or something you don't want your subconscious to process. Just erase a little every day. I've done that. That was great. Made serious changes in my thoughts about myself and the world, and just erase a little every day, and maybe do that on the waning moon, when the moon is also decreasing, and just wash it away. And when it gets to the new moon, make that last scrape. And whatever you don't want, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm a failure, write it all on the chalkboard, erase a little piece every day, get to the new moon, it's completely blank. And when the moon is waxing, you can build it up with all the stuff you want to think about yourself. Some other 18 minutes, this is going to be a 20-minute video. Some other, maybe ideas to actually, talk to those deeper, the inner witch, who is unconscious, subconscious, and irrational, childish, and doesn't speak the language of, you know, philosophy and rationality. You're going to talk to that inner witch. You might use things like a dial, like from a game, like one of those spinners from Candyland, the board games and stuff, and you might make a spinner, like put it on on put it on a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper, and write, I'm prosperous, or I'm impoverished on one side, I'm prosperous on the other, so you're gonna have this dial, and you might think, like, well, I'm at this level, I'm like 30% impoverished, and every day, maybe when the moon is growing larger, and you're just gonna spin it a little bit, until you get more prosperous. You're gonna get to the I'm 100% prosperous, and that would be a project. And you've got to take into account that you have abilities, whether they're psychic or magical ability to influence reality, that you probably have been told to, totally disregard. So it might seem like a foolish idea, like, well, I'm just going to spin this dial by 10% every day and I'm going to be more prosperous. But, Like Donald Michael Craig had said, for an example, like if you write down, I'm going to use all of my powers and abilities for this goal, and you work that, and you have a goal, and you visualize it or meditate on it, and you affirm to yourself, I'm going to use all my powers and abilities. I mean, you have more ability to influence reality than you're aware of. Um, and for me, it's like, and use the example of self-sabotage. I'm able to make things not go my way, where people might be like, wow, how does something like that incredibly random and bad happen to you? Like, I don't know, it's just my luck. And it's easy to do that because that seems safe and stuff. But to actually step out and be like, I've been doing this, or it's just as easy to succeed as it is to fail. And we can use all those powers. Like, if you think you have a life that is incredibly, like, uncannily bad luck, like, how does this stuff even happen to me? You, you got that. So just flip it around, reverse your beliefs, and take that power out and put it towards what you want. Um, and just some other ideas might be some locks and keys. That I'm sure you can Google lots of lock and key spells, dials, building affirmations. Just play around with it. You can write one letter and the next day write 2 letters, 3 letters, light a candle over each letter, over each day. Um, do collages where you take a letter out of a magazine for one goal, idea, affirmation, belief, patch it together, like I have money, and just do it every day. So your inner witch, who you're trying to communicate in that language that can understand, and just like you have the power to make the most random, bizarre series of unfortunate events happen to yourself, you can do just the opposite, if you're able to accept that. And okay, I think I'll end it there. Was there any other ideas? I mean, that's just a jumping board. I'm sure, with your creative inner genius, you can come up with some other ideas of how to talk to this inner gorilla, inner witch. So, bright blessings.